Well, vaccines to protect against COVID-19 are being deployed for the first time today in the United States. The vaccine made by Pfizer and Biontech specifically. Shares of Pfizer are a little bit higher today. Shares of Biontech are actually lower, although the stock has had an enormous run. Let's bring in someone to talk more about the investing thesis for some of these companies. Marshall Gordon is Senior Research Analyst for Healthcare at ClearBridge Investments. Marshall, thanks for being here. You know, Pfizer's had a bit of a
Thanks
run.
for having me.
Thanks for being here. So BioNTech has also had a big run. Are these, particularly Pfizer, is it going to make money off the vaccine? Is it too late to sort of invest in some of these healthcare names with an eye toward the vaccines?
So I think those are two separate questions. I do think Pfizer and BioNTech have a significant commercial opportunity, certainly over the next maybe 18 to 24, maybe even 36 months. I'm a little more skeptical about how much sales they'll have beyond that period. And part of that is that we've actually seen how effective the vaccines are. And I'm optimistic that they'll provide protection for perhaps many years. And we'll maybe need boosters down the road, but we won't need quite as much boosting as say, for instance, a flu shot, which would be annual. In terms of the stocks, I think the stocks actually reflect quite a bit of value for the vaccines today. And I think in certain cases may in fact assume kind of annual dosing, which, as I said, I'm a little skeptical about. I wouldn't chase the stocks here. I think that a lot of the quote vaccine trade has probably played out to date.
So then, Marshall, is it just based on what you just said? Is Pfizer and Moderna, are those stocks overvalued here? And if so, where else do you go to play the COVID-19 trade?
So look, I am not as big a fan of playing specific COVID trades per se. I think there's a lot of great innovation out there in the medical sector and in pharmaceuticals and biotech in particular. So I'm actually more likely to put incremental dollars not behind COVID sort of specific names these days. I think that one set of companies that will benefit, where it may not be quite as much in the stocks, is in the companies that are going to be providing the shots themselves. Maybe the distributors, maybe the retailers like Walgreens and CVS, who also have contracts to distribute and give the shots directly to patients. I'm more optimistic about some of those than I am necessarily about investing incrementally in Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna, specifically for the vaccines.
Marshall, I'm curious, I guess, thinking about healthcare outside of the vaccine, because it's been such an exciting time for humanity to see the development we've seen with the vaccines. But if we go back in time a year, we would be discussing, what does Medicare for All do to healthcare stocks? What does the future of healthcare in the U.S. look like? As you think about those themes, where do they fit into you today? Have they changed at all based on sort of the cracks we all saw in our healthcare system, during the pandemic?
I think with respect to some of the bigger political changes that people were concerned about, call it a year ago, I think a lot of the bigger changes are actually off the table. It's a little bit more difficult to make a political call here, but I think that if we have divided government, which is certainly a pretty substantial possibility, I think we will probably not have enough votes in both the House and the Senate to pass a very substantial change to the U.S. healthcare system. So I think some of those issues are off the table. I do think, in terms of how the pandemic is changing the system, I do think there are some systemic changes. I think one of the biggest is a movement towards more virtual care, things like telehealth and care in the home. And those are more durable trends that I do think will come out of that will change the system. I think that standing where we are today, we probably have less of a chance of larger scale changes coming from legislation.
Interesting. All right, Marshall Gordon, thank you so much for joining us, Senior Research Analyst for Healthcare
Thanks for having me.
at ClearBridge Investments. Appreciate it.